it started probably in the mid 60s when I was around 5 or 6 years old. And my mom and dad and I would pile into the car. I think they had a Thunderbird at the time. And we would head over there to the west coast of Michigan from Ann Arbor, where we lived. And to me, it was the most amazing adventure. It seemed to be so exotic and take all day to get there. But in reality, it only probably took about 3.5 hours. And we would go, my parents and I would join their family for about a week every summer, I think in July. And we looked forward to, it was a highlight of my year, honestly, when I was a little kid, being able to spend a whole week with my dear cousins who were like my best friends, and my aunt and uncle and my mom and dad. And we would just hang out by the pool and on the lake shore. Back in those days, the lake wasn't completely eroded. So there was a big beach where we could build bonfires and take walks and things like that. And it was just magical. You know, it was just a beautiful old lodge with gorgeous, gorgeous grounds. And we would just play. There were tennis courts. There was a solarium where you could lay out in the sun. And it had a different era, really, you know. So that's it in a nutshell. And we did it for, I'd say, probably about 5 years simultaneously, from about the mid 60s until the early 70s, is my memory.
Probably about right. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It was a time we all look back on fondly. We've all tried to get back there as much as our geography and time is permitted. But I think we all have really, as magical is a word that Chrissy used, and I believe that to be true. There were things about that place that resonate just as strongly today as they did way back then, you know, going back 50 plus years.
I can still smell the smells, you know, the pine trees and
oh my God,
you know.
Yeah, it hit all the senses. I've got smells associated with it. I have tastes associated with it. I have visual things associated with it. Just the sound of the waves. It encompasses all the senses.
I remember my hand being held most of the time. I was the youngest of the cousins and the towhead, if you will, and everything about it just was new. And it was the first time I'd ever tasted like real mayonnaise made from real ingredients. And it just was a bomb going off in my mouth, and real raspberries, you know, with cane sugar sprinkled over them. And there were designated times throughout the day that treats were dispensed in on the front porch, and they would ring a bell and they would bring out a cooler and ice cold root beer, frosty root beer or orange pop, just little things like that that we would look forward to. Do you guys remember that like meals were served like by them ringing a bell and
Yes.
just things like that, shuffleboard. The solarium, as you mentioned, Chris, was to me like a haunted house in the sense that, like, first of all, I think most listeners would have to like look up what the heck is a solarium. It just was so exotic. And it was a place you could kind of like get lost in, almost like, like a hedge maze. It was very, very special. And then, of course, the chalet, which is pictured in Chrissy's photo of the three of us together. They would put on shows. In fact, the interns at that time were kind of responsible for wrangling guests to be performers in these things. And we got looped into several of them during our years there.
Yes. Was it one of your first
as well?
You know, Brad, you're a professional actor. You have been your whole career. Was that your first stage, would you say?
Oh my gosh, yeah. Definitely. Let the fingers do the walking through the yellow pages was the name of the show.
No, let the yellow pages do the walking through the fingers. Wasn't it Flip Flop?
It was one of the two. I can't remember.
It was one of the two.
I think
you and Chris were yellow pages, and I was a finger in a crazy.
Okay. I remember I played a Horizon.
No.
And I just had to stand there like this the whole time. I didn't have a speaking part. They knew better.
Yes.
Oh my
It
God.
was clear that Chris and I had no future because I was a son, so they gave us the very kind non-speaking roles on
Yes.
stage. So,
I
Yes.
see.
Yep. It obviously had an effect on you, Brad, with your career. Aw.
Well, it's given me a lifelong love of wanting to be by the water, that just something about the sound of the waves and relaxing at the water's edge. It's still my dream to this day to live, by a body of water, because I think those types of memories have just really implanted themselves.
And Chris, you do.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I do.
true.
I live on Lake Union in Seattle.
Beautiful.
And at one point in my adult life, I moved to West Michigan. I lived in
I
Holland,
remember.
Michigan. It was my first job out of college, was working as a journalist at the Holland Sentinel. And so I got to be near the water. It was kind of a dream come true.
See, there we go. It's just, it really planted a seed. Like I said, there's many things that many years later I realize have been, as I've been thinking about this discussion, it has resonated that these things have implanted themselves quite a bit.
Exactly.
Impression.
Exactly. I think our parents, maybe unwittingly, just sought to really create memories for us that we would cherish for the rest of our lives. And I can remember one of my favorite memories was our whole family gathering at dusk to watch the sunset over Lake Michigan every night.
Yeah,
and that was beautiful. Yep.
It was a ritual every night. We never missed it.
Yeah. Yeah.
We had a very strange can line.
Yes, we did.
Night the sun hit the water.
Yes, we did. Yes, we did.
It was lovely. Think about it often.
Yeah, yeah.
And you developed a love of lighthouses, Renee, as a result.
Oh, yes.
I have a couple supplementary photos.
Oh my gosh, Daddy, those are so
Here's
good.
the beach before it eroded.
Oh my gosh. That's lovely. That's a good one.
Let's see.
Oh
my gosh.
Look how much beach was there. I remember that. There were paddle boards and there were canoes, things where you could really enjoy that shoreline. I remember having many bonfires down there.
Lots of bonfires.
Yeah.
Yep. And we sit around in a circle and do sing-alongs and take lots of walks and remember the stairs that would go from the lodge down to the beach. It seemed like they went on forever, and they were lined with raspberry plants. Yeah. Do you remember the stairs were lined on each side with wild raspberries?
Yes, I would eat them.
Yeah.
And what about the path to the behind the chalet?
To the woods?
That would go to the right, and there was all kinds of stories about a witch.
Well, there was some sort of sign declaring that it was a witch's trail or something.
It was. There was the witch's trail. I was afraid of it.
Me too.
I didn't want to go near it.
I don't recall ever walking down it. I think I was always too scared to walk down it.
I know it.
We probably dared Brad to go. Brad, did you ever go?
I went.
Of course you would.
Of course I went.
He has less fear than I do.
I'm the witch. I am the witch.
And you guys remember there used to be a giant tree that grew in the middle of the dining room, and they cut a hole in the roof so the tree would go right up.
Oh my gosh. Until you just said that, Chris, I'd forgotten.
Yeah.
Yes. Very Frank Lloyd Wright.
Yeah, really.
Falling River.
Yeah,
Frank
exactly.
Lloyd Wright.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It was kind of beautiful. At the time, it was lovely, and the service was impeccable, and it was a very nice place to eat, and the food was delicious.
It really was. And there were tennis courts where our dads would play tennis. That was
always fun. Yeah.
Oh, what about the Pickle Barrel?
Oh, right. There was a general store right down the street called the Pickle Barrel, and we would walk there and obviously get pickles. And I remember one time, Brad, you got a giant pickle and then you lost it. You brought it. We went back to the lodge and we couldn't find your pickle anywhere. And to this day, it's a giant mystery as to whatever happened to your pickle.
It's not a euphemism.
No, I was gonna say. ask where that picture went.
Exactly.
Oh,
Mhm.
can I just tell a story about this photo?
Yes.
I don't know how liberal your viewers are, but you can edit this out. So I know what I'm thinking in this photo. I'm
What?
deciding whether my sister's bathing suit or my cousin Chris's bathing suit I most covet. And
Are
want to be
most
wearing.
are the most covered? Did you say?
Covet.
Oh, to covet.
Which one he wishes he was wearing?
Oh, got it.
I love that, Brady. That is so funny. I love that.
Take a
That you-
closer look, Chris. I think in the photo I've decided.
Of course, hers was much cuter. Did you look at my face? I didn't even want to be in that.
No. No.
Aw. So what year,
Hey.
guys, do you think that was 1966 in that photo? And how old would we have been in that photo?
Well, I know
Greg.
what did you say, Chris? 6?
I'm just wondering what year you think that photo was, if it was 66, 67?
Could have been. These are 65.
Okay. So maybe
This
it was
was
Brad,
60.
you're
65.
free there.
We went over a period of many years. So
I know. I want to say it was maybe 66. Because
Yeah.
Clay was wondering how old each of us were in that photo.
yeah.
And
I
so
I look older in this photo than in this.
absolutely, absolutely.
Brad, I'd
So-
say you and I were 4 and 5 in the chalet photo, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
And I was probably 6.
Yeah.
Yep.
We were probably like little stair steps, 4,
Yeah.
5, and 6. Yeah,
Uh-huh.
yeah.
Yeah.
And you guys were always like the siblings that I never had, because I'm an only child, or I was an only child.
You
So
were our third child. Just
Yeah.
accepted that. You were just like the sister that sometimes didn't live at our house.
yeah, exactly. And sometimes did.
Yeah.
Did vice versa.
Mhm,
Yeah.
mhm.
Yeah.
Answer that, but I would guess it was my dad, only because he had his feelers out all the time on cool places to go. And it does seem like he probably was the conduit. He had family in Wisconsin, so that's kind of like a halfway point. I wonder if at some point there was
Mhm.
mention of it from a relative. I don't know. Brad, do you have any more insight than that?
That sounds great, Renee, in terms of Nana meeting them at some point coming from Racine, Wisconsin.
Yeah.
And Dad's connection, I mean, Dad's love of great food. If it would check off so many of his boxes
Yeah.
as a place to return to.
Yeah. And as I recall, you guys were already going there. And my parents said, hey, we're going to join the DePlanches this year. I think they invited us to join you, or
Good.
your parents invited my parents to join them. And then it became kind of an annual tradition after that. So I think your mom and dad got the ball rolling on that.
Gotcha. It does
Yeah.
sound logical to me.
Yeah.
Clay, for me, it's hallowed ground. It was a theater, but it was an A-frame, right, guys?
Yeah.
Yes.
It's an
Yes.
A-frame.
With a little
Still
tiny
stands.
stage. Yep, it still stands.
Yeah, chairs were all lined up, and there was a platform at the end. No
Mhm.
wing space, no really off-stage space to speak of.
Mhm.
Maybe there was a bathroom somewhere in there,
Hmm.
but I don't remember meals being served there.
No, I think it was for special events and for, like talent shows and things like that. Yeah.
It was
Meetings.
also used as for church services. I believe
Oh.
that was possibly part of why it was there. If you think about it, and you think about what the chalet was set up like inside, it was very much set up like a church altar kind of area. And I know they did use it for church services on
Mhm.
Sunday. We never went, but I know they did do that. And I think
Yes.
that was part of the motivation of having a gathering space on the property.
Right. I remember one of the talent shows my father participated in, and he won the prize for the best legs. And And he was so excited, he jumped up and he grabbed the rafters, and there was a nail sticking up out of the rafter, and he ended up impaling his hand on the nail. And so his joy was very short-lived. It's like,
But you know what, Chrissy, I can even make the story a little bit funnier with a true part of the story is that is how they were judged. The men were asked to hang from the rafters with their legs only exposed. And then the crowd was to judge based only upon seeing their legs as they were gripping the rafters. So your dad was actually impaled and up there hanging from those rafters when he won. So
oh my God.
that's even more impressive.
No kidding.
Wow.
No
Hey,
kidding.
I think our dad lost.
Oh yeah, Glenn won. Glenn was the winner for sure.
Yeah.
And your dad never let him live it down, I'm sure.
That's a good honor to have. It was good for him.
That's legs.
That's so funny. It made it that much more magical in my mind, because you didn't see those kinds of structures everywhere.
Not
it was
in
almost
Southern
like
Michigan.
walking upon a castle, just in the woods. It's like almost walking upon something you just didn't expect to see there.
Yeah, exactly. And I remember the owners of the place at the time were the Johanssons. They were Swedish. So I don't know if that was an influence in the architecture. I doubt it, but I don't know. Maybe there's something there.
Well, we grew up in Plymouth, so we were only 15, 20 miles from Chris when we were growing up. So it made it very easy for our families to see each other very often. And Brad and I both live in the city of Brighton, Michigan now, which is, I don't know, probably only 20 miles away from Plymouth and about 15 miles away from Ann Arbor.
Mm-hmm.
You two started going back separately on your own at different times. Then maybe once together, and then we did the reunion.
Right. Renee and I went back for a weekend back in the mid 80s. I was living in West Michigan at the time, and she was living in the Ann Arbor area, and we rendezvoused there. And so I would have been in my mid 20s or so. And then our whole family got together again in the mid 90s there for a long weekend, I remember. And it was great to get the parents and us back together. And then I still have a dear friend who lives in West Michigan, who I visit from time to time. And whenever I am in West Michigan, she always humors me and takes me there to Michillinda so that we can walk the grounds and reminisce. And so I've been back there with her 2 or 3 times, since I've lived in Seattle, when I've gone back to visit. So whenever I'm in the neighborhood, I have to go back there and drive down that long pine, the driveway that's lined with beautiful trees.
Oh yeah, we have to talk about the driveway.
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, my gosh, just you'd go through. You were on the road for 3.5 hours, and as kids, we were often asleep. But my father would stop the car at the edge of the driveway that would enter Michillinda, wake us up for this moment. And we would groggily sit up in the back seat of his red Volkswagen, and he would drive, like an 1/8 of a mile or something like that.
It was a long driveway.
Perfectly tree lined. And at the end of it was this beautiful, gorgeous lodge. And the smells would then hit you.
The smells from the kitchen. I remember smelling the kitchen smells that greet you.
Yeah.
And there were flower baskets along the driveway too, hanging on poles. So it was very majestic. It was beautiful.
Of these delicious evergreens as you were driving into the property before you were assaulted with all the other lovely smells. It was just, like I said, your senses would just come alive during the experience.
It would. They really would.
It still haunts me.
In a good way, hopefully.
Oh yeah. But I mean, like, I could be in rural Pennsylvania at Pennsylvania Shakespeare Festival doing a show. There's like this country road that goes off as you're heading into town. And if you look if you don't look quick to the left at this one little juncture, you'd miss it. But there's this long, long driveway that heads to this farmhouse in this one little spot that I've stopped and took a photo of a couple of times because it reminds me of Michillinda. Or you watch a movie on television and an old lodge, or a rickety wooden staircase leading down to a beach reminds you of Michillinda. Or somebody rings a dinner bell for everybody to come have dinner, it reminds you of Michillinda. Things like that.
Or you see a heaping bowl of fresh blueberries and raspberries, because your father would eat about 5 of those every morning with fresh cream, I remember.
Oh, or you see someone sunning themselves with those plastic eye covers that have a hole, and I think of Aunt Gret getting a suntan.
In the solarium.
In the solarium. I'll send you that picture.
Oh my God, that's great. I know the solarium, that was just a fancy word for a private place where you could sunbathe. Yep. And perhaps you could sunbathe, topless if you wanted, like the women could go in there maybe. I don't know. I don't think my mom ever did that, but I'm thinking that was more of a private place to get your sun if you didn't want to be around the pool and all the little kids like us.
Yeah.
Another memory, that's where I learned how to swim. And that was the first place I ever dove off of a diving board. Oh, so that's another thing that I remember. Yeah.
I think I remember your first dive.
Yeah. It was right before we had to get in the car and head home. And so I was so disappointed because it was literally before I had to leave. And I thought, oh, I just dove for the first time. Now I want to keep doing it and I can't because we have to leave. So I think the property has this amazing soul to it. And it holds such memories that whether the lodge is there or not, you can still feel everything when you go back in there and see the lake and the outbuildings and the chalet and the pool and the tennis courts. The soul of it is still there.